온더 글로벌 비즈 매니저를 맡고 있는 조셉 네멜카가 레이어 2 그리고 NFT라는 주제로 첫 번째 강연 시작해 주시겠습니다. 여러분 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
안녕하세요. Nice to see everyone here. We're happy that you're here early today, and I'm glad that you're here with us. Today, my topic that I'll be discussing is NFTs and how Layer 2 is going to solve some of the problems that NFTs have. One of the interesting things we've seen with NFTs is that there's a lot of hype, people are very excited, and there's a lot of great things going on, but it doesn't mean there aren't any problems that we need to solve. And I'm working with Onther, and we're actually working to build a Layer 2 solution that will help solve a lot of those problems that NFTs are currently encountering. So the first thing we need to know is there a lot of demand for NFTs? Is it really even a problem we're solving? So we've seen in the last few months that a lot of people are getting into NFTs. We can see that famous people in America, such as a basketball player named Stephen Curry, bought an NFT called a Bored Ape for $180,000. Visa bought a CryptoPunk, another NFT, for over $150,000. And then at Sotheby's, one of the most famous auction houses in the world, we have some NFTs being sold for millions of dollars. So clearly there's demand, but is that demand just from famous people, or is it from individuals? So if we look at actually the statistics, we can see that on OpenSea alone, there's a huge number of new addresses coming into the system. So one address would be one user. So if we look at these users, we can see that there's about 600,000 people, individual addresses, and maybe some of them some people are using similar addresses, but we can say that comfortably there's probably about 500,000 people who've traded NFTs on OpenSea. And then looking at here, we can also see the number of transactions that have occurred. So we saw early in the year there was very few people participating, not a lot of activity going on, but starting in August and then really ramping up in September, there was a ton of activity going on the blockchain. Lots of people buying NFTs, minting NFTs, selling NFTs. And this is great. This is creating a new kind of economy. It's helping a lot of people. But it's also actually creating a lot of issues that some people aren't aware of. So that's going to be my topic today is, one, we love that NFTs are growing, but how can we solve the issues that are coming around with it? So the two issues that Layer 2, I believe, is going to help solve are as one, NFTs, the majority of them are actually owned by a very small number of people. We kind of see this 80-20 principle both in finance, in economics, even in nature, where 80% or 20% of a certain group will hold 80% of the wealth or 80% of the land or something like that. And we see this exact same thing occurring with NFTs. So how can we help? So what are the things that are preventing individuals, larger numbers of people, getting access to these NFTs, and how can Layer 2 help solve those? That'll be the first topic I'll discuss. And the second one will be NFTs, because they run on a blockchain like Ethereum, can actually also harm the environment. If you buy an NFT or you sell an NFT or you mint it, you're using the blockchain, and currently the Ethereum blockchain consumes actually a lot of electricity. And so especially as these demand for NFTs increases, we're going to see a lot more electricity being used, and it probably could harm the environment. So I'll discuss what Layer 2 and the projects we're building at Onther can help solve these problems. So the first question is really, how bad is this problem of people, a small group of people owning NFTs? Is it just a little bit one-sided? Is there just a few people that own a little bit more than everyone else? Or is there a big group that owns a lot more than other people? So if we're looking at these NFTs, we can see that, you can see in the bottom, it's the log of rank of the token owner. So basically how many tokens the person owns relative to the number of tokens owned. So we can see that by far the majority of tokens owned are owned by a very small number of people. That's just, it's not fair. NFTs aren't something that only an elite class of people should have access to. They're something that everyone in the world should have access to. Everyone in the world should be able to use freely and easily. So we're trying to make that happen. So how can scalability and the projects we're building help this? And why does this problem even come to exist in the first place? What we're seeing is that one of the biggest barriers to people buying NFTs is gas fees on Ethereum. So to give a simple explanation of what a gas fee is, when you do something on Ethereum, whether you send a token, you interact with a smart contract, you get a loan, you have to pay what is sometimes a small fee in Ethereum, but as we're seeing in the last few weeks, is also can be a very large fee on Ethereum. When someone wants to mint an NFT, currently they could have to pay up to a couple $100,000 or a couple of $1,000s, and even just to trade or buy them, you have to spend a couple hundred. So the reason this occurs is because Ethereum placed a lot of importance on these things that we call security and decentralization. Because really, when it comes to a blockchain, if you don't have those two, scalability doesn't mean much, and you actually just turn it into kind of a server, which we already have a lot of those. So Ethereum chose to place its first emphasis on decentralization and security and solve the scalability problem after everything else was solved. And that's really what we're focusing on at Onther. So we can see that how bad these gas prices are getting. For most of Ethereum's existence, gas prices have been really, really low. So from 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, even into 2020, gas prices were nothing. No one worried about them. It's just like, oh, I can send an Ethereum token for 5 cents. I can send it for maybe, if it's bad, 10 cents. But then, with the rise of first DeFi, the DeFi summer of last year, and then also these new NFTs that you can see at the very end of this chart, these new NFT markets, gas fees on Ethereum are really becoming inhibitive for new users and people who haven't been in the ecosystem longer to amass the amount of wealth needed to participate. So we really need to find a solution to say, hey, even if you haven't been in Ethereum for the last 5 years and aren't holding 10 ETH, we still want you. We still want you to be participating with NFTs and be a part of the ecosystem we've built. But like I said earlier, it's really not feasible right now to invite just a friend and say, hey, do you want to come buy some NFTs with me tonight? There's a new project that I like that launched. So what you can see happening is to just create a collection, it costs currently $2,500, so around something like 3 million won. To just approve a transaction, it costs maybe $40, so about 50,000 won. And to mint, so let's say I want to make a new NFT on a project with my friends, it's going to cost me around almost $200 at today's prices, which is somewhere around 20 million or 200,000 won. You can't just invite a friend over and say, hey, can you use 1 million won, like $1,000 on this little project today just for fun? So we really need to create a better solution instead of just asking people to burn a lot of cash just to build some NFTs. So that's the first problem. And the second problem that we have, as I mentioned earlier, is the energy consumption of the Ethereum blockchain. Now again, the reason Ethereum needs to consume a lot of this energy is because at the time Ethereum was built, consuming energy was the best way to gain security, like I mentioned earlier. We need to consume something. We need to have something at stake. We need to be consuming something in order to make the blockchain secure. And energy, just like Bitcoin, was the most obvious solution at the time. But we can see that in the last year, this has just taken off to an unreasonable amount. It's something that I don't think anyone in the Ethereum ecosystem thinks is sustainable, and we definitely know people outside of the cryptocurrency ecosystem are not happy about it as well, because crypto's been getting attacked a lot, and from not always necessarily the most positive emotions, but with some fair attacks about how much energy we're using. So how much really energy are we using? Because if you just say the number, it's like, oh, it's 84 terawatts. Well, what does that mean? Well, what it really means, what we're really coming down to when we're looking at how much energy you're using is Ethereum by itself is consuming about the 38th most energy in the world. Now that's so much energy that really we probably don't need to use to process all these NFT transactions. NFTs are beyond important. I think we all know that they're great and that we really want to use them. That's why this whole conference is going on. But we don't need to consume this large amount of energy and this really waste these resources, harm the environment, and do a lot of damage just to get people involved. So we really need to make new efforts and try new things to get around this problem. Both, again, like I said, to help people get involved and help do less harm to others while we're doing it. Well, so why is layer 2 green? So what is this layer 2 solution that I'm talking about? Well, what layer 2 really is layer 2 is a solution that guarantees you the security and it guarantees you the decentralization of Ethereum. But at the same time, it gives you, like I mentioned earlier, let's go back real quick. Oops. It gives you the decentralization and security of Ethereum, but it brings that scalability that we really needed to make it accessible for everybody. So now we have this truly decentralized product that anyone can use, anyone can participate in, but not everyone's forced to pay a lot of money or is forced to hurt the environment to use. So we're really looking forward to it. I don't know why that happened. So what kind of layer 2 solutions are there? And kind of how is the development of layer 2 going? So currently there's one big thread in Ethereum layer 2 development, and then we can split that thread into kind of two smaller groups. So the biggest thread, what we call rollups. What these rollups do is they allow us to take a lot of the data that needs to go into one transaction and to compile it. So you just basically squish a lot of things into one, and then you can just save a little bit. So you save a lot of money on the transaction costs and on the storage space and a lot of other areas that the blockchain uses money. So these rollups have been being developed for the last 2 or 3 years. Before that, we had tried other solutions like side chains. We tried Plasma Network, and those were good. But the problem with them was we lost that core idea of decentralization that really blockchain was built for. Without decentralization, again, like I said earlier, you can just build a data server and do lots of fun stuff with it. We really, in order to build a truly decentralized blockchain and something we want to call blockchain, it has to have that decentralization aspect at its core. So what these two solutions do, the first one is called optimistic rollups, and the second one is called ZK rollups. So what they do is, like I said, they both shrink the data, but they do it through different ways. And I'll give you a brief overview of the different things they're doing to kind of shrink the data down on the blockchain and to help us both save money on fees and to help the environment so that more people can join the blockchain ecosystem. So the first one, and the one that's kind of being developed faster, is called optimistic rollups. Now what these optimistic rollups do is they use these things called fraud proofs. Basically they say, hey, I trust that you're not going to cheat. I trust that you're going to cooperate with me. But I'm going to take 2 weeks to check. So while you take that 2 weeks to check, the issue with optimistic rollups is that it takes two weeks, between 1 to 2 weeks depending on the product, to withdraw the money from the blockchain. Or back onto Ethereum, excuse me. It takes 1 to 2 weeks to move money back onto the layer 1 Ethereum level, which in most cases shouldn't be an issue, but in some cases that isn't ideal. So, and that's what we call this delayed withdrawal. Now, in terms of helping people decrease fees and help the environment, we at Onther and a lot of other groups think the trade-off is fair, and it's definitely something we're working forward, and this is actually one of the first products that us and Onther will be releasing soon. And there's already a bunch of other companies that have done similar things, and we're seeing great results. We're seeing the fees get down to, instead of $10 to move a token, 10 cents. Instead of $30 or $40 to mint an NFT, now down to 2 or 3. And those costs will even continue to decrease as the blockchain develops. And another great thing of optimistic rollups is that the code from Ethereum can be ported straight onto the optimistic rollups. So let's say I'm someone who's built something on top of Ethereum and I have a great DApp, or I have an NFT that I can mint. I can take that code and I can move it directly over to this new rollup and say, hey, it's just a copy and paste in most cases. And so it's really simple for people to onboard, and that's why this solution is being developed quicker, is because there's less technological development that needs to happen on top of it. You just need to get the infrastructure built out so that it can integrate with Ethereum and work. The second solution that us at Onther and a lot of other teams are also working on is called ZK rollups. Now ZK stands for zero knowledge, which means I don't know, but I know through math that I can trust you. And what these use is they use validity proofs. So you don't know what is going on behind the scenes, but you know that they're honest about it. So it's like, I don't know what happened there, but I know that you're not cheating, so that's good enough. Now these are really great because they use a little funny, like for lack of a better term, a fun math trick. They can really compress the data down, even in some cases more than optimistic rollups. And that's something that, again, like I said, will help us decrease those gas fees, help us decrease the electricity used on Ethereum, and help everybody just have a better user experience on board both Ethereum blockchains and others that also end up using these rollups. Now, what's the downside? Why haven't we just built these today? Why are we also using optimistic? It's actually because it uses this kind of fun math trick to compress the data. It's really hard to do that with some complex code. In a lot of instances, that's going to take some more code, and you're going to have to build an entirely new program to do the same thing. Now, a lot of people are working on ZK rollups, but it's going to take a lot longer to build the same ecosystem, which is whether that ecosystem is talking about the NFT ecosystem we have on Ethereum, whether that ecosystem is talking about the DeFi ecosystem, or any of the other products we have built on Ethereum. It will take a lot longer for us to build those on top of ZK rollups than on top of optimistic rollups, because it's going to take a whole new set of skills and a whole new kind of thinking to do that. But it is getting built, and it's going to happen, because us at Onther and everyone else in this ecosystem is really, really committed to making this happen. Because like we said, blockchain isn't just about number go up. It's not about just we all get rich. It's really about embracing this bigger community and letting anyone into the community that wants to come in, regardless if they have 10 Ether or if they have 1 Ether, whether they have no dollars in their bank account or $1 million in their bank account. We really want to make sure that blockchain is something that's available for everybody, and that includes NFTs. And like I said, the perk of ZK rollups over optimistic is that it doesn't have a delayed withdrawal. Like I mentioned earlier, since on ZK rollups, you can trust someone instantly, even though you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, you know that you can trust them because they've kind of signed something that says, yes, this is what's happening. You do get the advantage of this instant withdrawal. Excuse me, this instant withdrawal. So each of these rollup solutions are being developed at the same time. ZK is a little slower because it is more technically complicated and a little more harder to build, but it does have enough trade-offs and enough enough benefits for us to work on it. So we're building both at Onther, and lots of other companies are building both as well. And I'll talk about why we at Onther specifically are focusing on both and why we think that both solutions are worth investing in our time and resources into. So let's now talk about specifically why are these scaling solutions good for NFTs? What are they going to do for us to help us use NFTs more often, to help us use NFTs more green, and to help more people use NFTs? Because that's really what we want. So this is from a product that is similar to ours at Onther called Optimism. Now, when people want to use a fee, want to do something on Optimism, and this is with the base product of Optimism, it was one of the first products they released, it initially would cost 5 times less than what it would cost to do the same thing on Ethereum. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but when your transactions are on Ethereum and they're going up like they are today into the hundreds of dollars, having your transactions fees go from $100 to $20 still opens the gate for not everyone. We're not where we want to be, but it opens the doors for so many more people to participate, and this is only the beginning. What we're going to do is us at Onther and the teams at Optimism and Arbitrum and these other places will continue working on these products with the goal of actually getting these fees eventually down to 1/1000th or 1/10,000th, so tiny fractions of what it takes to do the same thing on chain. So we're, like I said earlier, so like today, to create a collection, it costs around $2,500 or maybe 3 million won, so about something mana. Then we're going to cut that cost down to maybe $1 or maybe even cents if we get good enough at what we're doing. Now then, if that one was so expensive, now this mint function, which is currently around $178 or about 200,000 won or ishimana, we're going to get that function down to fractions of a cent, tiny, which that will open up the door for so many more people to come into the NFT space. Like I said earlier, we have around 600,000 people estimated to be participating just on the Ethereum blockchain with NFTs, and around 350,000 people trading NFTs on OpenSea. And that's at these prices. Imagine if at these prices we have that many people participating in the NFT marketplace and working with us to create new communities and create new projects. Imagine what will happen with NFTs when we really decrease those costs to cents or even fractions of a cent. It will open the door to so many more new people, both that cannot come in because of financial reasons or others, and it'll create a whole new wave of people who can enter the marketplace and work with us to create new, cool NFT products. So, what is our role at Tokamak, and why do we think we're special? Why do we think we have something to offer to the layer 2 ecosystem? Because there is a lot of other projects building something with layer 2s. Like I said, there's teams like Arbitrum, Optimism, ZK Swap, Loopring. So many teams are building something. So what's so special about us? Everyone's building something similar, aren't they? That's not the case. So our kind of idea is that in the future, there's going to be a lot of these roll-ups, whether it's a ZK roll-up or an optimistic roll-up. But not everyone's going to use the same one. There'll be some people who will use an optimistic roll-up in one place. There'll be some people who use a ZK roll-up in another. And it's not just like there'll be even 2 of those. There could be hundreds of different kinds of ZK rollups or hundreds of different kinds of optimistic rollups. But to move, the ability to move NFTs and other capital and other liquidity between these rollups will be key to helping keeping these ecosystems active. And again, keeping the doors open. We don't want to say, hey, you're allowed on this rollup, but we don't like you on this one. Or, hey, your NFTs are valid here, But for whatever reason, to make them valid on this chain, you have to go all the way back through Ethereum. Because even if I have a NFT on one rollup, if it's going to cost me $150 around Ishiman again to move it back to another rollup, my NFT still isn't liquid then. It doesn't solve the problem. It sort of solves it, but it doesn't solve it entirely. So that's what we've chosen to focus our efforts on at Onther. We've chosen to build something that can take all of these layer 2 solutions. So again, as I mentioned earlier, the only layer 2 solutions, it's not like we only have the rollups. We also have previous solutions that have been developed, such as Plasma. We have customized layer 2s like sidechains. A lot of you will probably know Matic, or Polygon, as it's known now, which is a sidechain. You have Validium, which is another solution that's being developed. And you also have, like I said, Zk rollups and optimistic rollups. And all of these will have NFTs on them. There'll be housing contracts. There'll be people's salaries. There'll be fun games being built on them. There'll be art. There'll be everything. But we need to make sure that between each of those rollups and each of those layer 2 solutions, money can move. It needs to be able to move around. Otherwise, again, we're shutting people out of the ecosystem, and it's not open. So what we of Onther have decided to do is decided to make it so that each of these rollups, instead of having to go back through Ethereum to be connected to each other, we're building a product that will allow them to be connected to each other. So we call this a cross rollup exchange, where we're gonna build a rollup for each individual product that needs it. So there can be a rollup for a new NFT game that gets released, and there can also be a rollup for virtual humans. But those rollups will be interoperable with each other. They'll be connected, and they'll be able to work with each other to pass NFTs back and forth. Again, and that's just like the simplest. We could see NFTs for housing contracts. We could see NFTs for videos. We could see NFTs for weapons in video games. We could see NFTs for art. All of these will need to be mobile and will need to be tradable among each other and moving. Because without that ability for capital to move freely, why have the NFTs in the first place? If it's still locked into whatever sort of container it is, whether that container limits it physically to a country like Korea or like the United States, or that container is going to limit it to just a certain community or a certain use case. And I talked about this yesterday. The real value of NFTs and the real value that we're seeing is the NFTs allow you to unlock the liquidity or the value of anything. So you can take even this little piece of equipment I have here. You can say, I'm going to make an NFT of this, and now I can get a loan against it. I have my smartphone, which I can make an NFT of, and then I can take a loan against that NFT. Unlocking this liquidity is something that not is only going to help people who have these nice things, but it's going to help people who only have small things but need access to liquidity to become more active members in both the economy in their local areas and the global economy. And that's really our vision at Tokamak and at Onther. We believe that just because rollups are being developed, it doesn't mean that that's the end. There needs to be something that connects to even those layer 2 solutions. So I think today, what I've discussed is that rollups are really NFTs are great. They're wonderful, and like I said, there's gonna be so many solutions, there's gonna be so many problems solved by NFTs. But NFTs still have a few barriers left to cover. And the two biggest that we see at Onther, and the two that we feel like we can help the most, are both green energy, and the two that we feel like at Tokamak are helping make blockchain more green, helping it make so that when people do use NFTs, they're not harming others. Because even though it helps us, we don't want to hurt other people. And the second thing is, we want everyone to be able to participate. Really, if there's borders around someone not being able to participate in NFTs and someone not being able to interact with this global new blockchain decentralized system, we'd be sad about that. And that's why we've chosen to even attend this event, is because we believe that the city of Busan and the people here in Korea, we believe that we share these values, and that we really want to make people come together in a new way that will allow anyone, anywhere, no matter who they are, to participate in this new financial system. So I hope that in the future, as you use Ethereum and as you use other blockchains, you're kind of mindful of saying, hey, I'm grateful that I can use this today, but what can I do to help the ecosystem move forward? What can I do to help things like this product be more used? Is there a layer 2 solution out there that I'm not aware of that I could probably be using to save both myself money on gas fees, but also to help move the ecosystem forward? Because it doesn't take just the people like us building. It really takes every individual member who has just one transaction in their wallet or less than 1 Ether. It takes each one of us to move things forward and to make sort of this new blockchain community that we can all be a part of. So I hope that you've enjoyed my presentation today, and we look forward to announcing more and great new things later as we release our rollups. And thank you for participating.